Now this goes back, the goddess is often related to the star Sirius and comes back through Freemasonry and all of their strange garbs and their unusual ways. Let's skip it. So our ancient past, once again I gotta apologize for not having these in order. Where'd it go? So our ancient past has a lot of structures that we cannot explain, cannot define, don't know why or how they put them there. Structures that are too big, rocks that are massive with 33 angles that go together that you can't slide a piece of paper through. Construction that we wouldn't even consider doing. And yet they're trying to make us believe that the Aztecs left their fertile lands to go up to the northern Rocky regions and build massive pyramids with no written language, all astronomically aligned, set up to watch the stars. So what are these ancient structures that follow a cycle that's 26,000 years, the precession of the equinox? Now just take that into account. If we know of the precession of the equinox, the Egyptians knew of the precession of the equinox, you have to sit through 26,000 years to see it for the first time. You got to sit through another 26,000 years to prove it. Say, yeah, this is happening cyclical. So how do we get a precession of the equinox without 52,000 years of society to find it? But what these things do is actually, they're giant speedometers on planet Earth, because we can see when things are accelerating or decelerating. By watching the stars rise, especially Venus, watching Sirius rise, watching the sun rise. And they would have certain markers in each of these structures. Now you've got Chaco Canyon of the Native Americans, you've got the pyramids of Peru, you've got the pyramids of Egypt, you've got Babylon. The list goes on of the ancient structures that follow the sun and follow the precession of the equinox to time, ancient time. We've got monoliths that they used in the Temple of Baalbek, Lebanon. That's a person. Okay? That's 1,500 tons. We couldn't even think about moving that thing in the 21st century. But there it is, from ancient Baalbek. So there is a lot of structure, and a lot of evidence to say that there was high technology in our ancient past. And now they are watching massive time. The beings that have been depicted now through exopolitics, through that's extraterrestrial politics, is a new science coming forth. They've labeled them the Alpha Draconans and the Syrians. And so one is known as the dragon, or the Draco, and the other as the merfolk, or the fish people. Lo and behold, if we don't have the dragon and the fish people in our main programming structures and city-states. Not to mention that just the obelisk, the dome, and the pentagram are the ancient Egyptian hieroglyph for Sirius. So if you go stand downtown, you'll see you've got the clock tower as the phallus. You've got the goddess who represents Sirius herself, and Venus. These two come together in Isis and Sothis. And then the Capitol dome with the goddess holding a pentagram on top. Now that is the hieroglyph for Sirius in ancient Egyptian. And you'll also notice that that goddess on top of the Capitol looks very strange. I don't know if you've ever gotten a good close-up look. I have it in my film. She looks just like the depictions of the weird humans that existed back in Babylonian times. You start looking up pictures of Enlil and Enki and Ninharsag, and you're going to see these weird faces. They really got strange body structure, and of course that's exactly what the goddess on top of the Capitol here looks like. Then I ended up at Manly P. Hall's library. This, again, that 33rd degree Freemason that stood, who writes all of the, I'll get a close-up of this, who writes on all of the Masonic secrets. And this is the doorway to his library. And what you'll see here, let me go to the next picture. Well, I wanted you to notice that they're being worshipped. And then I'll give you a close-up. These are the doors of Manly P. Hall's library. You'll quickly notice that one is a reptile, He has reptilian slits in his eyes. I'm not sure when these doors were carved. It had to have been the early 1900s when Manly was around and doing this stuff. And then, of course, the other one, a fish man. And then, as I showed you, these men are being worshipped. And you'll notice that the reptilian is holding a pine cone. And this is typically a sign of the pineal gland, in a way of getting inside of the third eye, the mind, and being able to transmit transcendentalism, right? And then the merfolk, the merman, he has a penis staff, or reproduction, and you know, cloning and technologies. Well, the description that they gave of these two, oops, that's the wrong one. These two races from exopolitics themselves. Now, when exopolitics came out, they weren't talking about the Pope and the Queen. But I happen to find that these things fit perfectly. So the Alpha Draconans control human elites, institutions, financial systems, keeping everybody in scarcity and struggle and insecurity. This is the way the reptilians stay in charge. This is the way they keep themselves in control. But their opponent, the Syrians, were ones that they could never defeat because the Syrians had so much technology that they couldn't defeat each other. So then they formed a union and maybe landed on planet Earth and started what we know of as the divine right to rule. And their bloodlines carry on and on. Up to you to believe whether that's possible or not. But the symbolism is consistent. And of course I have hundreds of hours going into this very story. Then I came to Barack Obama and his current state, and when we walked through the whole symbolism, I found that they have a list of terror tactics they plan on using on us. Werner von Braun came forth to tell us exactly what they had planned for us. And he seemed, now Werner von Braun, you know, he's a Nazi.
An ardent Nazi.
An ardent Nazi, yes. SS, full brotherhood, doing all the rituals and everything else that they had before them. And, of course, he came over to America for Project Blue Book, or, Project Paperclip, and began working with a young man known as Walt Disney. Well, Werner von Braun, now a Jet Propulsion's laboratory scientist getting us up into space, announced that there was going to be a method to bring about their Luciferian dialectic and their new world order. He said first they're going to use a Red Scare. They're going to use the Russian scare to start this process of a new world order. Following that will be terrorism. And of course, that's where we were back in 9/11. They said after terrorism will come asteroids. Well, so I just took Werner von Braun's word and said the next scare will be asteroids. So we've been through terrorism, we've been through the Red Scare, it's time for asteroids. Well, lo and behold, as I said this, they announced, oh my God, there's an asteroid coming towards planet Earth and it's going to destroy all life in 2029. Or maybe 2036. Maybe not at all. But the real reason we want to tell you about this is because the asteroid is named Apophis. You know, Apophis is the first serpent deity of destruction of Akhenaten's religion. In other words, it was Akhenaten's Satan. Well, the asteroid they announced was named Apophis. So all of a sudden I had Akhenaten in office battling his ancient nemesis, Apophis. What were the odds? And of course, Werner von Braun having placed it all. So, following the scare tactics, the next scare tactics to come were extraterrestrials. So once they announced Apophis, Jet Propulsion's laboratories set out with their asteroid watch. They set out and put out the space-based space surveillance system. They started launching other satellites up into space, started putting out different techniques of being able to watch deep space and to see into the infrared. So they put out the WISE telescope. They put out, well, the Vatican put up their Lucifer telescope. Let's get to that. So, next thing we know, everything's going right according to plan. Just as he had said, just as they were saying that they needed all this surveillance to go up into space to make sure we were safe from any incoming bodies. Where did my folder that's weird. I think I lost my folder of space news. Oh, no. Okay, so here is the news headline. It's called Apophis. It's 390 miles wide, and it could hit Earth, right? So there, there's the fear of Apophis. Just to prove it to you that I wasn't making that up. And the Vatican launches their Lucifer telescope. Yeah? The Vatican was like, well, it wasn't really us that named it, it was the Germans that made it. But you'll see they went through a lot of effort to make sure that the Vatican's telescope was named Lucifer, being the large binocular telescope near-infrared near-infrared utility with camera and integral field unit for extragalactic research. Yeah, we had to stretch a little bit to get that thing titled Lucifer, right? What the heck?
That's in Arizona.
That's right. That's right. It's not that far away. Well, so then they started to seek the anti-universe. It wasn't enough to have space in our way. We had to start to see the other universe, the other side of things. And this involves CERN. Now, CERN's corporate logo is 666 with a hyperdimensional portal. CERN is a very interesting company that we're going to talk more about. But they launched out the alpha magnetic spectrometer, which went up to the International Space Station and is stationed there now to see the anti-universe, to see the dark matter, to see the other side. Because something has triggered them to start needing to get more into the infrared, to start seeing deeper into the other worlds. And at the same time, they've decided that they might want to see inside of closer worlds. So right at this moment, we have the Grail satellite system, which is mapping the surface of the moon and also the inside of the moon. If you guys remember the bombing of the moon, anybody? All right, yeah, they bombed the moon. Now this was ridiculous because one, it cost $79 million to crash the lacrosse rocket into the moon, and it had already been done. The Japanese had sent up their Cayuga satellite and crashed it into the moon to see what would happen. India sent up their Chandrayaan-1 and determined that there was all kinds of water on the moon. This was months before we ever launched NASA's lacrosse mission to bomb the moon. And it was my personal belief that the bombing of the moon was actually to strike it like a gong so that it would ring, so that then they could use computer tomography to be able to see inside of the moon. So much like in Jurassic Park, when they pound the ground and they can see the bones of the dinosaur underground, you pound the moon and they can use HAARP, a high frequency active auroral research program, or any of these ionospheric heaters actually can then see inside of the moon, and they found it was hollow, at least 70%. Then they went to Mars's moon because, well, Buzz Aldrin, he wanted you to know that there was a monolith on the moon of Mars.